Start sound. Roll camera. Lights. And action.
Welcome one and all to this talk show. Amongst us, we are fortunate to have Dr. Pramod Deo, Chairman, Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, who has extensive association with power sector development in India. We are going to discuss how our power companies are contributing to environment and community development. Tata Power, you are not only generating but distributing power for a long, long time. Your critical component of Mumbai's progress and development. I think many of our youth should realize. These guys toil very, very hard to make Mumbai run. So when you operate power plants in coastal areas, Mr. Kokal, and especially in Mumbai, they have a power plant at Chembur, you are touching the coast for one reason or the other. When you touch the coast, okay, I want to hear from you, what is the care that you take so that our coastal ecology gets protected?
First thing is that when we carry out any work, actually, we don't treat contractors as separate. So environment management per se is a part of training for each employee who comes in, whether on contract or on regular roles, so that, minimum basic standard of operation is inculcated in that person when he is on the job, regardless of regulatory authorities. We ourselves see that we are always within the norms prescribed by the authorities, and we try to strive and go beyond compliance. That's our philosophy and policy right from the beginning. And that's the reason why we feel that being on coast has not impacted on the environment.
Now to Mr. Rao. Rao from GMR. Rao leads the environmental function across all GMR companies. And your power plants, which are shifting from Karnataka to AP, are again located in the coastal areas. These coastal areas have very, very sensitive habitats. They have mangroves. There are creeks in that. So what care do you take while establishing the power plant and also operating the power plant so that the coastal ecology and especially the mangroves are not impacted as much as it would otherwise?
First of all, we will select a site such that there is no such kind of mangroves and other dense ecological issues will be there in the site. So we will try to avoid it first. So we have taken such a location that it is already in the port area, and these mangroves from our plant, it is around 10 kilometers distance. Regulatory point of view also, we will not get simply set up any plant in coastal area without having a CRZ clearance. This CRZ clearance itself will take care of all this marine EIA entire thing. Then only will be given clearance after taking the management plan for that.
Thanks, Mr. Rao. Narendra, your company GVK has similar business as of GMR. You are into airports, you are into roads, you are into real estate, and also into power. How do you look at forest ecology? Hydropower plants submerge certain forests. Coal-based power plants, when they mine out coal, they also damage forests because coal is always found under the forest. Okay? So how do you take care?
This is a very important issue. But as you know, forest and minerals always go together. Similarly, hydropower also, where we require a lot of submergence, the forest land has to be, some part of the forest land has to be submerged. So the question is balancing and how exactly we can optimize the whole thing to see that the damage or whatever the perceived damage has to be minimum. So one thing is regulatory things are in place, like Forest Conservation Act is there from 1980. So to certify these legislations, as my colleague has already said, we have to prepare the management plans. Then in the case of forest land, the most important criteria for any government permission is compensatory forestation. So we have to, if you are planning X acres of land to be submerged, then naturally you need to have another X acres to develop the reforestate in consultation with the forest department. Other thing is, in the case of irrigation projects where you are doing in development of hydropower, the location also has its own specification. The engineering specifications are there. So there is not much chance to shift the site. So naturally the emphasis is more on conservation as well as management practices to reduce the impact and do the project with the best practices in the country or in the world. Now coming to the mining part of it, mines, mineral are really a very scarce resource in our country. So the planning and the permissions are so difficult to get because of this stringent criteria. So we have to plan everything very well and convince the even now with the new rules of public hearing coming, the local activity has to be done and we have to do everything consultation. So we have to have a proper plan and a sustainable development plan for that area. Then only we can able to do those, extract those resources.
Yeah, as we see now, all three of our plants here we are talking to are taking care of the ecology, whether may it be coastal ecology or a forest ecology, as required by the regulations, and actually they are going beyond. They seem to be aware. Number of times for the power plants, we have this whole issue of, you need a lot of land. One is for the mining, from where your fuel comes in, but also for operations, you require a lot of land. And besides that, you also require lots and lots of water. Okay? And we have always been seeing that the farmers in and around a power plant always say that we are losing our irrigation water for these power plants. The power goes to somebody, whoever, okay, but we are not having the irrigation water. So there is a tremendous pressure on both irrigation water and the land by all these power sector operators, power generation units. So can you tell me what efforts are you making at each and every stage to minimize, okay, the use of water, to minimize the use of land?
Just to add to your question, I like to qualify a little bit. In this respect, coastal and inland power plants need to be distinguished separately. Coastal plants normally are going solo on their own by using seawater. Yeah. Inland plants, the question is still there, and there is a balance which you need to arrive at between various competitive users, not only farmers. Farmers is the key.
Absolutely.
Primary user, but others also you need to consider and then take care of them. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I think water is definitely a very important, a very critical issue because as per our water policy, it goes first for agriculture. So naturally, any industry, if you have to tap water from any rivers or any other irrigation facilities, we have to have a proper plan for that. And we have to keep it to the minimum possible. So technology comes into aid, and all of now the new power plants have the best of technology in terms of cooling, in terms of water recirculations, plus additional facilities for rainwater harvesting and all. They have to have those plans in place. Then only you will be able to survive. Otherwise, water always becomes the issue in in most of the units. As you rightly said, in naturally being a natural gas-based power plant, which we are running now, we also face less problem on that. But in our coal-based new plant coming up in Punjab, we have a very solid plan for water management and harvesting in Punjab, so that the freshwater drawing is limited only for drinking purpose and other purpose. Otherwise, all other industrial water requirement is met by recirculation and other facilities.
Our audience should realize, we all should realize that what efforts all these power generators are making to reduce the resource use. An average household that consumes power, actually it is also consuming the water required for one person in that household. The land of the size of something like 2-3 of your bathrooms, something like 40 square feet of land is required to support power generation for one household. So whenever we are using our power, and over using our power, and unnecessarily using our power, we are also using water, we are also using land, we are also emitting carbon, we are also emitting a number of other pollutants into the air that cause the air pollution. So we should think twice, thrice before actually increasing our electricity consumption. So with these few comments, now I will turn to our experts. First of all, many of you will have a doubt. Is it that in India, we all have very backward plants, we use very backward technologies, we are not efficient enough, etc., etc. But let us try to understand what is the level of technology application in the power sector. Mr. BCP Singh, you are the sort of the best expert available in the country on the power sector, power generation plants, and you have been involved in power generation for more than something like 25 to 30 years, and almost served all kinds of companies and established their power plants. Mr. BCP Singh.
Thank you, Dr. Rambabu. Normally power plants, if you see NTPC or other state utility power plant, they have huge area for ash disposal. So I am the one who initiated high slurry disposal system, where you mix up ash with water to 60, 65, 35% and make a slurry and pump it. So this is, doesn't percolate, it forms a solid. In 4 hours you can walk over it. It reduces 60, 70% of the area, and it doesn't have a problem of removing the water and then treat it and then pollute the entire area. So the new technology is the high concentration slurry disposal, which enormously reduces the land. And over the years, you store it and then make a forest. Ash is good as a fertilizer property also. I have seen some of the places in Europe where beautiful forest has been evolved from the ash disposal area. One is they reduce the area, other one is make it naturally environment friendly. Secondly, on the water consumption side, we have technologies now developed for condenser polishing unit. You need to clean up the water, which thereby reduces the makeup. So this reduces from 3% to 1% processed water, and then go for closed loop heat exchangers, which mostly use air instead of water. And then we used instead of natural draft cooling tower, we have forced draft cooling tower, which cools the water and then giving it back to the sea within 5 degrees, even less than that. So here you preserve the sea side also. The coal-based power plants where smaller capacities, where we have 50 megawatt, 60 megawatt, 100 megawatt, we need to change this to higher capacities like 500 megawatt, like Dr. Deo said, that supercritical technology. So these are the revolutionary changes required for the future, where we can reduce the coal consumption. Some of the plants where I worked, I used to have a specific coal consumption, that is 600 grams, 700 grams to generate 1 unit. Whereas the latest technology, we have less than 400 grams. The 300 gram saving is a huge contribution to the environment side. It reduces your cost, and it is a good saving to generate least cost power. So there are a lot of technologies now have come in, and thanks to the regulatory authorities also, they are forcing us to consider all these things. And other thing is the emissions level. Fortunately, Indian coals have low sulfur, so we don't need a sulfur recovery unit. And then to tackle the high ash, we need to have efficient combustion system, then efficient electrostatic precipitators, where you precipitate entire ash, and then the most important is the high height, 275-meter chimneys are specified now for any plant above 500. So these are some of the proactive steps taken to see that environment side is protected. So these are the answers to help nature to preserve and also contribute something for the nature. Thank you, Dr. Rambabu.
Thanks a lot, Dr. D.C. Singh. So, it's wonderful. So many of you should realize when you switch on and consume 1 unit of power, the generator actually using something like 600 grams of coal to generate your 1 unit of power. So that's one thing. And importantly, what is said is that, yes, Indian power generators are adopting more and more advanced technologies. They are going in for supercritical. They are going in for, even considering going in for ultra supercritical, world-class technologies. Okay, some of our power plants operate at a very, very high plant load factor. We are doing the best that we could do to generate more with less. That is what we are hearing. Now, coming to Dr. Modak. Dr. Modak, you have been working for a very, very long time in the clean technologies. And besides that, you have also been advocating in this country for the distributed power generation. Dr. Modak, you can explain the problem and also make my young friends aware that how distributed power is relevant to India and how it can solve a number of problems a significant number of problems that the India is facing. Thanks.
Thanks, Ram. Distributed generation of power is a bit of a, I would say, complement to what we talked about earlier in terms of, so to say, large-scale centralized power generation followed by transmission and distribution. Makes a lot of sense in a country like us where we still have a problem of many people being off-grid, where we need to get into some localized solutions, providing them access to energy. And also makes a sense even otherwise, if you were to really put the entire environmental footprint together, comparing both these two possibilities of centralized generation and distribution versus the offline or off-grid or distributed generation of power. First of all, the philosophy emphasizes that we use local resources as much as possible. It also pivots us back to maximum use of renewable resources, which is an interesting thematic Dr. Dev talked about. So we then will explore in such options, how do we use biomass, how do we use energy from wind and solar and such solutions, which is interesting from the point of promoting renewables and reducing the environmental impacts. There's also a very important element of community engagement in these small plants. Take, for example, biomass, where the power plant runs literally on the interest and cooperation and capacity building we would do of the community and help them to earn better livelihood. So there's a very interesting community engagement factor, which in many ways goes sync to colleagues who talked about on their social responsibility. The other important element for us to remember is that for small plants like 15 megawatts and less, there is no environment clearance required. So you got to have, for such small decentralized or distribution units, within the developer, a DNA of sustainability. Because when regulations are not asking for, it is a responsibility of the developer there, and understanding on environmental social counts becomes very, very important. Again, important innovations needed there in terms of how do we store energy, how do we hybridize solutions, and how do we ensure least consumption of water, and if we did, how do we do water harnessing or harvesting and so on and so forth. So I would look at it, Ram, this as a very important segment that we should look at it from the environmental social perspective.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So it's basically local solutions. Distributed power is more like local solutions. I require power, I generate power, I use power. Now, Rakesh, what is the kind of environmental regulations India has? Many of us feel that we do not have very strict environmental regulations. Many of us also feel that actually we have a very weak infrastructure to implement regulation. Please let us know, in comparison to other countries, how are our regulations, how is our implementation machinery?
So in terms of looking the large numbers of regulations that India has, I would say regulations are very good comparatively. And also the new technology which have come are actually so clean that the recent EPA team which had come and wanted to visit, they said there is nothing which we could suggest to these power plants which are new.
EPA from USA.
Right.
Yeah.
Now when we come to these older ones which you mentioned some time back, we need to take a big view on that, because we are going lenient on them on environmental issues, only because we are sort of power. So we can't tell them close it down because you're not meeting the standards. Some of the issues which are external in terms of normal understanding. So we know that there are particles and nitrogen oxides and sulfur dioxide, they create problem. But when we look at longer term, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, there's something called externalities which are not counted. The social aspect which Dr. Modak just now talked about, they need to be accounted for right now for the whole power sector, not only coal-based, not only thermal, hydro or nuclear, but all of them. And then take a look which one is looking good for us in terms of long-term externalities cost that the society is incurring. And then we look at our regulation in a view that can be revised, that can be looked more rationally, and then move forward. This is the time when we should have the benchmarking done all over again. Europe has done, US has done, now India should do this right now.
Mr. Santosh Gupta, how do you look at overall environmental vision and approach and attitude of power companies in India?
You're asking me probably the toughest question. And believe it has taken me almost about 10 years to convince SR people that environment is not a liability. It's a business opportunity for all of you. We as environmental engineers, our profession, we see that whatever is coming out, let's say from your chimney, or what is going in your water, or what is going on the land, is the efficiency loss of your system. Any chemical engineer will agree for it. That whatever you are not able to utilize goes as waste. And that's where the environment management started. Conserve at the source itself. Environment is most important for us, and it's a business sense for any enterprise. Thank you, sir.
Now, Vinay, now that there is a reference about the NGOs, how does this corporations look at CSR?
Well, actually, since we have less time, I'll not really talk about how corporates look at CSR. I think for this audience, what is interesting is how should we as individuals look at CSR. Virtually any industry, probably in the world and certainly in India, the way it's growing, it's not on a path of stable equilibrium. And therefore, everything will happen to excess. And a lot of times, a lot of the negative fallouts also will be in excess. Now, our general mentality is to accept that as something which is a necessary evil. But time and again, it has been proven, and I think listening to everyone here, it is proven that we need not accept negative fallouts as a necessary evil. Things can be improved. We use our voices and our wallets in terms of purchasing goods and services to actually try to influence that. And I think that's a very important message. Just coming to our CSR study, we study the 500 largest companies in India, and we look at what they do in CSR, and we put all that information out in the public domain on our website, and we give a rating from a scale of 0 to 4. The power sector, being a high impact sector, naturally doesn't even get a 4 easily. There are no companies with a 4 out of 12 companies which are in the 500 largest companies. About 2 have a CSR rating of 3. The combined profits of these 12 companies is about 25,000 crores last year. And in fact, we are happy to see that the government is making a move where the government is saying 2% of your profit should be spent on some way or the other towards CSR, whether it's community development or different things which are relevant to the unit, which is about 500 crores a year. And I just want to emphasize that when that mindset and that money starts coming in through corporates, and given all the resources and abilities that corporates have, terrifically intelligent people, geographical reach, latest technologies, we'll start seeing India improving even more and more.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Now I open it for audience questions.
Good afternoon, sir. So you told us about the private companies' technological efficiency. So can any of us enlighten on where the public sector is? I mean, we have many public sector thermal plants in India. Where do they stand and how far can we go to improve them?
Okay, let us take this question from the experts.
Well, before the two experts reply, I just want to see one heartening trend in Maharashtra is that Mahagenco has been closing down inefficient old plants. And they are really seeing very carefully about how to improve the calorific value of the input of coal that they use. And I think that's very heartening to see that trend.
Well, I don't have a direct exposure to public sector, but then I definitely know about NTPC because I have friends over there. They are really good in terms of the CSR as compared to probably...
Absolutely. Yes.
Probably private power producer. Kokil, will you agree with me?
But I just want to add that NTPC is the world's largest emitter of carbon dioxide. So, so whatever they're doing in CSR, I think it's very important that we don't get carried away.
My name is Saigal. I'm from a construction company. Now, why I have got up now to speak is, we're talking about very big things, technology and so on. But what matters is the people around there, are they aware of it? So that they can also watch these companies doing what is right or not.
Can I now ask our young friends to ask some questions?
Good afternoon to all. It's a delight to be here. I'm a student of Bachelor's of Science and pursuing physics presently. We have addressed power plants that are fueled by coal or natural gas, so on and so forth. But we are a country with an abundant supply of uranium, an abundant reserve of uranium and plutonium. don't you think that companies like Tata or GVK or GMR should be given, should the government allow these companies to go on and set up these power plants? And what are the challenges of setting up nuclear power plants in this sector?
Yeah, please.
We don't have reserve of uranium abundant, but we do have thorium. Plutonium is produced in the reactor. Now, as a nuclear person, I would say that's the best technology. The only basic problem is the solid waste which comes out after the reactor fuel has exhausted after 7-8 years of time. That's a major issue because you got to preserve it for hundreds and hundreds of years. That is the only limiting factor. But then for a country like ours, really speaking, that's the only solution available.
I understand your question because you come from a background of physics. But really, what the country has an abundance of is solar power. We should really be looking very seriously at how do we as a country move towards solar power. We are seeing Germany do that. We are seeing that Japan has woken up and is closing down all its nuclear plants.
Thanks, Vinay. Can any amongst the experts comment or they have a different opinion on can solar or wind or renewables on their own, can they meet the power requirements of India? So, okay. So, Vinay, yeah.
I am not a real power man, I know. But, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, absolutely. Go ahead.
Sorry. My point is that are we having systems in place and do we want to encourage systems in place which is going to, for instance, subsidize solar power till the extent it becomes cheap enough? And are we going to, put a levy on other forms of power so that the economics of that slowly is reducing? So that at least the new plants that people are talking about, that entrepreneurs are coming into, would have a tendency towards renewables.
Yes, go ahead. Come on.
Hi everybody, this is Pratik Vyas, summer intern with Environmental Management Center. I would like to ask what are the efforts taken within the company to build a culture of environmental awareness? What does the corporate do for their employees to be more aware towards environmental, towards sustainability?
Tata Power. Let's.
Well,
Yeah.
we take care of all the employees that whenever we induct them, they start off with first induction into basic environmental knowledge, without which they are not actually put on the job at all. They may be permanent, they may be, for contract or for assigned job anyway.
I think we should not leave the onus, even in our minds, we should not think the onus is on the company, on its employees and just the immediate surroundings, really. I think what we can ask companies is, for instance, that can they spend time, money, effort to actually educate all of us in how we can reduce our consumption. So I think that's what we should be demanding. That corporates, please, you are the experts in your business, please advise us how to reduce consumption, because even as a nation, we are shortage of power. So they will sell anything, anyway, everything that they produce.
I take this comment in the right spirit, and I would like all of you just to visit the Tata Power website and have a look at our energy club thing. We are into generating power, selling it, and we are asking people and educating them to reduce it. It's a contradiction, really.
Yeah.
India has a large biomass base, and we talked about solar, we talked about wind, but are companies like GVK, GMR looking at biomass also as an option for generating electricity?
I know GMR started with biomass-based power generation. So can you comment on the biomass, and then I'll come to Dr. Modak. Yeah.
We have sugar plants earlier. From that bagasse, we used to develop that power generation around 600 kilowatts. Very minimal amount, but still without wasting that bagasse, we used to develop that one. But anyway, as a business decision, that has been disinvested and somebody else has acquired that plant.
And you're right. But your question was to saying that, why not biomass? I think the biomass capacity is ever expanding. There are quite a good amount of biomass plants are coming. But biomass directly competes with many other uses. Biomass for power or biomass for food. Biomass for rural energy uses or biomass for electricity generation. So that's one thing that goes on. Dr. Modak on distributed.
You just said that. That's the point. That there is availability, but there's a competing demand. and collection of biomass becomes
challenge.
often an issue. Yeah.
Yeah, I think somewhere here. Yeah, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shrimoy. I work with Environment Management Center with Dr. Modak. I wanted to know from you all, is there any particular initiative that has been taken by any of your organizations in saving wildlife?
See, in our plant itself, we have devoted certain areas for this development of the captive zoo with the permission of the government. So that is a big initiative to give boost to all the young schools. I mean, young people come and visit that, and a lot of knowledge spreads in that region. So that is a special initiative done, and it is going on for the last 10 years now in particular one of our plants. And for the wildlife in Bombay, in fact, we have joined CSIA as a GVK group. We are joined with the Chief Conservator of Wildlife. I mean, other than our in a power plant, no other special initiative, but we complement the efforts of the Forest Department with some contributions and other things. We are also a member of Friend of BNHS, who do a lot of these activities. So we give some donations to them and all.
In my organization where I am working still, for any mine, when you take, and if it is, let's say, within 25, 30 kilometers, the requirement is only 10 kilometers, but then 35 kilometers, you have to get your applications processed. And that time, you have to prepare something called as a wildlife conservation plan. Let me admit that we don't prepare it because we don't have the expertise. We appoint somebody who has spent his lifetime in the forest department, like conservator of forest or principal chief conservator of forest. They prepare the plan, and we, as what Dr. Husabedu said, make the contribution to implement that wildlife plan.
Yeah, Vinay. Yeah.
I think you've raised a very good point. I think corporates and others should really fund the study of effect of light, power, etc. on birds, insects, animals.
Well, what you are suggesting, we are already doing. BCP Singh mentioned that we are setting a power plant in Kodinar area. Now, there is one local organization with name Prakriti Nature Club. Person who is heading that organization is 7th standard pass person, working as labor with Forest Department. When we identified it 1 year back, what we said, okay, we'll enter into MOU with them for 5 years period. I said, you take up environmental awareness promotion in this entire area, one part. Second part, what these people are really missing is they don't have scientific background and scientific equipment to really record data. Simple things like GPS. Say sea turtles keep on moving in that area. Now, where did they find sea turtle? They don't have good GPS. They don't have good binoculars. So we are supporting them. We are saying, okay, if you generate awareness, if you collect more scientific data, then we can have only mitigation measures, because all of us are engineers. Define problem correctly, we can give a solution. If problem is not defined, we cannot give a solution. That's
all. Yes, Shantanu.
I'm Shantanu Exambeko, Associate Director from General Carbon. I have done an independent study which says that about a hectare of mangrove saved or planted gives substantial carbon credits. Okay, that is one point. Number two is since most of these mangroves are now getting endangered, they are, I think, as good as being as endangered species. Are any corporates taking any initiatives in saving them? So
yeah, Shantanu is hinting at since 1 hectare of the mangrove conserved gives you around 30 to 40 carbon credits. It pays for itself. Conservation of mangroves is paid by the carbon finance.
See, we are power generators. This is not our core competence, so we seek help from others and we actually back the efforts. So what we do is, for example, in Gujarat, we have gone with Gujarat Ecology Commission. It is like I am funding them, and they do it the way you said just now, that go through the local NGOs, use my money to promote mangrove conservation. And in fact, they are not calling it as mangrove conservation, they look at it as coastline conservation. So, you know, the layers as per the natural environment are created at appropriate place from the coastline, so that the coastal conservation takes place.
That cluster, yeah.
My name is Barun Singh. Yes, I've completed my mechanical engineering from VNIT in Nagpur. This question is to everybody. I guess the power plants or in fact refineries, whatever are put, they are commissioned for a period of say 20 years, 25 years or so, exactly, right? So what happens after these plants are decommissioned?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, because in India we do not have many plans for decommissioning of industry.
question is very relevant for the environment point of view. As I told you earlier, the smaller plants are the culprit, generate a lot of pollutions. So the answer is that yes, we should decommission at least 50% of the plants which are today generating power, but we should have equal amount of capacity as higher generation, so that we have spinning reserve to decommission these plants. Otherwise, there's a huge gap between demand and supply. We wish we cannot do that at this stage.
I want to comment on this point that, if we are going to wait, that we'll first get new capacity and then we'll decommission plants, I think that's going to be a very long process. See, if we want more investment to come in quicker, in better technology, we should actually actively decommission.
But only thing is that whether our guys will be ready for power off.
No, this process has to be gradually done. I agree with Vinay, and this has to have a lot of meticulous planning, and also from the regulators, it has to be forced.
Yeah, please, Rakesh.
In recent times at Maharashtra Pollution Control Board, where I interact very closely, everybody has been brought on par. At par on regulation. So if they're not meeting, they need to decommission, retrofit, whichever way. So I think government from that angle has become very serious. If I can quote those probably are confidential discussion. But the Energy Minister of Maharashtra also agreed. Though earlier it was very difficult to communicate to politicians to say that you must close it down because you are not meeting the standards. Said we need to bring in money from wherever, but we must be at par in terms of regulation. So that's a good sign.
Since the Tata Power has the oldest power plants, may I ask you to comment on this briefly?
Well, we have done decommissioning, so that's not something difficult.
When you take care of environment, wildlife, there is taken care of. Yes, the corporates need to extend their services, they can create so. The Mangrove Society of India has done a lot. But to the extent that mangroves are required to be distributed and transported all across the country, the coastal side to create mangrove forests is not happening. Rather, you find them more depleting. So that issue has to be taken up by the corporate sector. Solar, yes, I have seen in the villages how solar lanterns are so useful. You made right appeal. I think these are the issues, the interactions that have come across the corporate house. We are so enriched by your experience and the operations. I think this was a wonderful talk show. It has knowledge us a lot, and it has brought on the level of understanding what they have been doing and what is required and what society is required to change their mindset. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot. It has been really a wonderful talk show. Thanks a lot for very, very actively participating. I think let us go back with a determination that from today onwards we celebrate nature and we develop an attitude of gratitude towards the nature. And don't forget powering your homes with solar. Thanks a lot.